Hi guys, in this video we are going to discuss about the third member of plant kingdom, that is Pteridophyta. Pteridophyta members are very common in our surroundings and you can easily find out in your nearby areas also these members of the Pteridophyta group. And here I have some members of the Pteridophyta which are found in my locality. So let's see the pictures of some of those members. This is one of the Pteridophyta, which is Echinopteris radiata. How beautiful they are looking, right? One more is there for you, and that is Ediantum. So this is another Pteridophyta, which is an amazing plant which looks very beautiful. And now we are going to start with the pteridophytes, and let's see who gave this term Pteridophyta. So the term Pteridophyta was given by Haeckel. Term by Haeckel. Now these pteridophytes are represented as flowerless, seedless, spore-producing vascular plants. So flowerless means there will be no flower on these pteridophytes. Flowerless. Have you ever seen ferns in your nearby areas? People use ferns in their gardens to decorate their homes. So these ferns are also pteridophytes which never produce flowers. So pteridophytes are flowerless. They do not produce seeds. They are seedless. In case of gymnosperms and angiosperms, we'll see seed formation, but the pteridophytes do not form seeds. So these are seedless. They produce spores just like the bryophytes. So they are spore producing. Vascular plants. Now, vascular plants means what? Now these plants are having vascular tissues, that is xylem and phloem will be present in these plants, that is the pteridophytes. So if xylem and phloem are there, can I say they became successful terrestrial plants? Yes. So the pteridophytes are the first successful terrestrial plants or land plants. First successful terrestrial plants. But the primitive pteridophytes are still similar to their ancestors, that is bryophytes, and hence these are known as the reptiles of plant kingdom because they are the first successful terrestrial plants, but they resemble with their ancestors somewhat. Hence we can say that these are the reptiles of plant kingdom. Another important point. Reptiles of plant kingdom. So who is known as amphibians of plant kingdom? Bryophyta. Reptiles of plant kingdom? Pteridophyta. Very easy points. Questions are asked on these points a number of times and you can simply answer them without any points. Another positive point which made these pteridophytes successful on the land plants is presence of roots. So we'll see that the roots are now present in the members of Pteridophyta, and the roots are for the first time seen in the Pteridophyta. In Bryophyta, roots were not there. What the structures there? Rhizoids were there, but here in the Pteridophyta, roots are there. So students, let's see now some specific features of the Pteridophyta. And the first specific feature we have got is these are the vascular cryptogames. Vascular cryptogames. Now, some of you might be thinking that we'll get confused that how you learn all these things. So relax, we'll be simultaneously discussing about the bryophytes also. We'll simultaneously keep revising the characteristics of bryophytes And we'll talk about the characteristics of gymnosperms and angiosperms also, so that you will not get confused, you will not forget, you will keep revising here itself. So now, the word vascular means what? The word vascular means now the pteridophytes have xylem and phloem present in them. That is, conducting tissues for the first time are seen in pteridophytes. They are not seen in the case of bryophytes. So what do they have? Xylem plus phloem. Now, another term is given, that is cryptogames. Cryptogames means hidden sex organs will be there and no seed formation will be there. These are the plants without seeds. Clear? So these are the terms given to the pteridophytes, that is vascular cryptogames, specifically used for the pteridophytes because bryophytes are avascular and gymnosperms and angiosperms are not the cryptogames, they are phanerogames. I told you in my previous videos where I explained the classification. Now, in general, they have xylem and phloem, but let me tell you, xylem is composed of 4 elements, and as phloem is also composed of 4 elements. We'll see the details of these xylem and phloem in plant anatomy, but one point you need to hear, because we are discussing about pteridophyta, so we need to talk about the characters of the pteridophyta, right? So out of the 4 elements of the xylem, one important element is there, that is vessels. And these vessels in xylem are absent in the case of pteridophyta, and similarly in case of phloem, one important element is there, that is companion cells. Companion cells in phloem are also absent in pteridophyta. Phloem are absent. Clear? Now, there is some exception which have the false vessels present in it. False vessels means the vessels will be made up of something else. Here, these vessels are the modification of tracheids. So, let's write the exceptions. Exceptions having vessels. Remember, exceptions are very important. So first one is pteridium. Another exception is Selaginella, one of the important member for us of the pteridophyte. This Selaginella is having a species which is actually the Sanjeevani booty, and one more is there, that is Marsilia. So these are few members of pteridophyta which have the false vessels present in them. So let's tell about these vessels. What are these vessels? These are false vessels. And how they are formed? They are formed by modification of tracheids. Modified tracheids. So these are the points regarding the vascular bundles, that is xylem and phloem elements. Now we have the next point, that is the type of vascular bundles. So in detail, the types we study in the plant anatomy, but here we need to see the type of vascular bundles in the pteridophyte. So types of, not types, it is type only, type of vascular bundle. So the first term to specify the vascular bundle type is concentric. Concentric, don't worry, I'll keep explaining the meaning of these words here itself, even if you don't know about the vascular bundles. So vascular bundles means the xylem and phloem are arranged. And in case of concentric arrangement, the two vascular bundles, that is xylem and phloem, are actually present in the form of rings That is, here the xylem and phloem are present in the forms of ring, where one of the two is present inside and the another one is present on the outer side. So here I have drawn two structures. I can't draw a perfect circle. So these concentric means the two vascular elements are present in a circle. The type of concentric vascular bundle pteridophyta have is amphicribril. Amphicribril. Amphicribril, also known as heterocentric, and I'll tell you how to remember this arrangement in heterocentric vascular bundles. So it's very simple. Hetero means you can say water. And which is the water conducting element? Water conducting element is xylem. So heterocentric means xylem is present in the center. Hetero, xylem, centric, center. So here we have xylem in the center, which is completely surrounded by the phloem. So this outer vascular bundle is phloem, which is surrounding the xylem, and such vascular bundles are known as amphicribril or heterocentric. So you will not forget this word heterocentric and its meaning from now. Next we have is Mezark condition. Now, Mezark condition means the newly formed xylem elements are formed in the center and the old formed are present in the outer side like this. This is newly formed and then the older formed are present on both the sides of this newly formed xylem. Such arrangement is known as Mezark condition. Detailed we'll see in the plant anatomy. So now the next feature of these vascular bundles is that they are closed tight. Closed means no cambium is present, and if cambium is not there, it means what? Absence of cambium means there will be no secondary growth. What does it mean? There will be no secondary growth. So no wood formation is there, no secondary growth is there in the pteridophytes. Clear? But again we have an exception, and this time the exception is there is a plant which shows the secondary growth in it. So exceptionally, what is the name of that plant? Isoetes. This is a pteridophyte which has this secondary growth in it. So exceptionally, Isoetes has secondary growth. Clear? You just need to remember this exception name. That's it. Why, how? We don't have to go for those questions. Okay. Next point is regarding the successful adaptation by the pteridophytes. So remember, these pteridophytes are not completely successful on the land because they need water for fertilization. So we can say that they are not completely successful and usually are found in moist and shady places. So where they are found in moist and shady places, as they need water for fertilization. Next point is regarding the general features of the pteridophyte. Now here we are going to talk about the structure, about the body of the pteridophyte. So let's put the heading general feature. And the first point we have regarding the pteridophytes is that the plant body of the pteridophyte is sporophytic. It means it is a diploid body. Point number one, plant body is sporophyte. Sporophyte means it is diploid, that is 2N is there, the plant body. Now next point is regarding the presence of the roots, stems and leaves. So the pteridophytes, sporophyte has true root, stem and leaves present on it. So for the first time, the true roots are seen in the members of the plant kingdom, because we saw in the bryophytes, rhizoids were there in place of the roots. But these roots or the primary roots are short-lived. The next point is primary roots, short-lived. Means they will die soon and they will be replaced by the adventitious roots. Next point, the stem is sometimes underground. Usually the stem is green, soft, and sometimes the stem becomes underground and it is known as rhizome. So underground stem is known as rhizome. Now, do not get confused with rhizome and rhizoids. Remember, rhizomes are underground stems and rhizoids are the root-like structures found in the lower plants. Coming to the next part of the pteridophyte body, that is leaves. The leaves are actually of two types based on the size of the leaves and stem. So the first type of leaf that we have is microphyllous. Microphyllous is a condition where stems are large in size and leaves are small in size. Now, examples of microphyllous pteridophytes are important, and the examples we have is equisetum. Another example is Lycopodium. And one more example is there, that is Selaginella. I'll show you Selaginella in this video itself, the picture of that Selaginella, and you'll see that they have very small leaves. इनकी leaves बहुत ही छोटी होती है, but इनकी stem जो होती है वो लंबी होती है. Such type of pteridophytes are known as microphyllous pteridophytes. And now we have the second group of the pteridophytes based on the size of the leaves or stem. So point number 6 is megaphylous or macrophyllous. Macrophyllous now, just reverse of microphyllous. अब यहाँ पे क्या होगा? The leaves will be larger in size, leaves बड़ी होंगी, and stem will be smaller in size. Stem कैसा होगा? छोटा होगा. Again, the examples are important. So we have example as pteridium. Another example is pteris. P is silent, so don't get confused with the spellings. And another one is Marsilia. This Marsilia is a fern, or these are the ferns. Macrophyllous pteridophytes are commonly known as ferns. Now, next point we have is a standard point, and I'm going to write it with a different color. So we have one standard point. I'm going to star mark it, and it is that the differentiation in plant body is completed in the pteridophyta. Differentiation plant body का कहाँ complete हो रहा है? Pteridophyta में, but it started in the bryophyta. The differentiation of plant body starts in bryophyta. Star mark this point and let's write this. Differentiation of plant body. When does it start? Starts in bryophyta. And the proper differentiation is seen here in the pteridophytes. Next, we have another point regarding the vascular bundles. So remember, these vascular bundles are present in all the vegetative parts. जितने भी vegetative parts हैं टेरिडोफाइटा के, उन सभी में ये vascular bundles present होंगे in an organized form, forming a group known as stele. So next point number 7, all vegetative parts have vascular tissues organized in definite group which is known as stele. It's not S-T-E-E-L, it is S-T-E-L-E. And the details about the stele I'll be introducing you in the next video. So stay tuned for my next video. Now the next point is point number 8, and these pteridophytes, as I told you, are found in moist and shady places. They are mostly terrestrial. If we talk about the habitat, then most of them are terrestrial, means found on land, but some of them are aquatic also. And the example of aquatic pteridophytes is Marsilia, which are found in water, Salvinia. Another one is Azolla. Azolla has very good importance as a biofertilizer also. Another one is Isoetes. Next we have is epiphytes. Epiphytes, those pteridophytes which live on another plants, and the examples is Lycopodium. Another one is Ophioglossum. Now, some of the pteridophytes are xerophytic in nature. Xerophytes. Examples are there, two are there which are important. One is Selaginella and another one is Ediantum. Ediantum I showed you in the beginning of this video. Next, if we talk about the asexual reproduction in the pteridophyta, then for asexual reproduction, they have spores which are formed in sporangia, and these sporangia are formed on the sporophytes. So sporophytes will produce sporangia in which the spores are produced for asexual reproduction. And now let's see the life cycle of pteridophytes. Life cycle. So the main plant body is what? The main plant body is diploid. Let's see some important points regarding the life cycle, and then we will see the actual life cycle as we did for the bryophytes. So these pteridophytes are mostly homosporous, means they have one type of spore produced in them. So one of the important point is mostly homosporous. These are mostly homosporous. And examples of these homosporous are important, so you can star mark them. The example are Lycopodium. Another example is Equisetum. So many examples are there, right? You need to learn them actually. Next one is Ceridium. But as I told you, learn 4 or 5 at a time. Don't try to learn them all together. And the last one is Dryopteris. So these are few members which belong to the homosporous pteridophytes which produce single type of spore. But there are some heterosporous pteridophytes also. These heterosporous pteridophytes have examples which are also important. So let's see. Heterosporous, and example is first one, Selaginella. Another example is Marsilia. Then we have Azolla. Repeated examples are there for all the types. Then we have a Salvinia. And the last one is Isoetes. So do learn these examples of the heterosporous pteridophytes. The most important ones here are Selaginella, Marsilia, Salvinia, which are included in the questions also in the previous year questions on different exams. Next we have is the spores formation. So as I told you, the spores are formed on the structure which are known as sporangia. So let's write this point. Spores form on sporangia, and these sporangia are formed on the specific leaves of the sporophyte, which are known as sporophylls. So my next point is sporangia are formed on leaves. These leaves are known as sporophyll. So we can say that the sporophylls are what? The sporophylls are the reproductive leaves. Reproductive leaves. Then we have another point that is regarding the normal or photosynthetic leaves. The normal leaves on which sporangia are not present. So normal photosynthetic leaves which do not have the sporangia, they are known as tropophylls. What they are known as? Tropophylls. So from now you will be clear what are sporophylls and what are tropophylls. These tropophylls can be represented as vegetative leaves. Vegetative leaves, because they are not playing any role in the reproduction. In some of the members of the pteridophyte, the sporophylls will form aggregation, means sporophylls will get together to form the structures known as strobili or cones. So next point is sporophyll aggregates, means collects, get together to form structure which is known as strobili or cone. And this takes place in the examples like Selaginella. Another example is Lycopodium. Then another example is Equisetum. Right? Now, next, there are some groups of the pteridophytes in which the sporangia are present in the form of group, and they are known as sorus, which are together known as sori. It looks quite complicated, but it is very easy. How? Let me show you. Group of sporangia. In some pteridophytes, like in case of ferns, all the ferns, in them the group of sporangia is known as sorus. And now this different sorus will come together, will aggregate to form the structure which is known as sori. So many sorus will together form the sori. One unique character of the pteridophytes is there we have, that is the sporophylls are photosynthetic here. The sporophylls, the reproductive leaves are exceptionally photosynthetic. photosynthetic. This is a unique character of pteridophytes, means not found in other members of the plant kingdom. Now we have the next point is regarding the exosporic germination of spores. So here in the pteridophytes, the spore germination takes place outside the parent body or outside the spore wall, we can say. The gametophyte will be formed outside the spore wall. So exosporic germination of spore. It means what? It means that the gametophytes will be developed or germinated outside the spore wall, right? And these gametophytes will grow in the soil. So the gametophytes are completely independent of sporophyte, and sporophyte is completely independent of gametophytes. So what we can say here, there is an independent alternation of generation. So let me write the point first of all. Independent alternation of generation, which is specifically seen or a characteristic point of the pteridophyta. So I'm giving it 3 stars. As a number of times the question is being asked, what is the reason to call it as independent alternation of generation? Because the sporophytes and the gametophytes develop independent of each other. The gametophytes will develop in the soil, the sporophytes will develop in the soil. They will not depend on each other. So the two generations alternates without depending on each other. Hence we call it as independent alternation of generation. Now we have one important point regarding the gametophytes. Now, in case of sporophytes, that is the main body of the pteridophyte, we said that they have the vascular bundles. But what about the gametophytes? Do they have vascular bundles or not? No. There is no member in the plant kingdom in which the gametophyte has vascular bundles. So let's write another point that gametophytes are always non-vascular. They will never have vascular bundles present in them, whether it is algae, whether it is a bryophyte, or it is an angiosperm, gymnosperm, or pteridophyta. They will never ever have the vascular tissues or xylem and phloem present in them. Clear? Now these spores will germinate to form the gametophyte, and this gametophyte is actually a multicellular structure. So next point is multicellular gametophyte develops from spore in soil, right? Without the help of the sporophyte, independent of the sporophyte. And this multicellular gametophyte is known as prothallus. The independent multicellular gametophyte is known as prothallus, and this prothallus has two parts, that is thallus plus rhizoids. Rhizoids which are functionally similar to the roots. So these are few important points regarding the gametophytes we have in the case of pteridophytes. Next point we have is again the homosporous and heterosporous pteridophytes. Homosporous, as I told you, they will have single type of spores, and these are monoecious. whereas the heterosporous pteridophytes are dioecious. Means either male or females will be formed from these spores. Now these are again the start getting points, means important points. Next we have the structure of the enterozoids, that is the male gametes. So the male gametes in the pteridophytes are spiral and multiflagellate. I'll put the star mark pre-hand, 2 stars I'm giving. Enterozoids means the male gamete. These male gametes are spiral and multiflagellate. Multiflagellate means more number of flagellas are there. More than 1 or 2 flagellas are there. So we call it as multiflagellate. But exceptionally, in case of Selaginella, so many exceptions are there, right? In case of Selaginella, their enterozoids are spindle shaped. What is the shape of the enterozoids? They are spindle shaped. Whereas in case of Lycopodium, the enterozoids are having another shape, Lycopodium, and enterozoids are curved and biflagellated. Curved and biflagellated. Means only 2 flagella will be there on the enterozoids of Lycopodium. Now we have the complete life cycle ready for us to be seen. So let's start with the main plant body, that is sporophyte. Sporophyte is the main plant body. On this sporophyte, which is a diploid structure, will have the formation of the reproductive leaves, which are known as sporophylls. Right? The sporophylls are the reproductive leaves on which the sporangia will be formed. Sporangia. These all are diploid structures. Do not get confused with the ploidy level. On these sporangia, they will form the spore mother cells by normal mitotic divisions. Spore mother cells. These spore mother cells in the sporangia will now have the meiosis division. The reductional division will be there, and the spores will be formed, which are actually the haploid structures. The spores are formed, and these spores are the haploid structures. These spores will germinate into the gametophytic plant or prothallus. So we can say gametophyte or prothallus. Right? This gametophyte will now have the male and female reproductive structures, that is Entheridia and Archegonia. Entheridia, that is male reproductive structure, and another one is Archegonia, that is female reproductive structure. And from these Entheridia, what they are going to form, the Entheridia will form the male gametes, that is enterozoids. Whereas the Archegonia are going to form the female gametes, that is the egg. Now, these egg and enterozoids are also the haploid structures. And now what is going to happen? Now the fertilization, that is the syngamy, will occur, and it will lead to the formation of zygote. So syngamy leads to the formation of a diploid structure again, that is zygote. The zygote will develop into the embryo, and this embryo will further form the sporophyte. So this is how the simple life cycle is there in the case of pteridophytes. Now this fertilization type, because the male gametes are flagellated, they are motile, and the type of fertilization is zooidiogamy, just like the bryophytes. Zooidiogamy, where the male gametes are motile, they reaches to the female gamete for fertilization. Clear? So this is again an important point. I'll give the star mark to this term zooidiogamy, which is seen in the case of bryophyta also. Now coming to the type of life cycle they have, so let's divide them according to the ploidy. So from this zygote, the diploid stage starts and it ends till the mother's cells, spore mother cells. This is the sporophytic generation. And this one we have is gametophytic generation. So in both the type of generations, they have more than one stage. So it is diplohaplontic life cycle, because diploid stages are more as dominant, or the main plant body is diploid. Hence it is diplohaplontic life cycle. Mark this point, that is the life cycle in the case of pteridophytes is diplohaplontic. Diplohaplontic life cycle. Clear? And as I told you, the alternation of generations is an independent type, which is another unique character. Now we have one more specific character about the pteridophytes, which is again asked a number of times in the exams, that is heterospory. Heterospory means the formation of two types of spores, that is male spores and female spores. Such heterospory is seen in the case of Selaginella, as I told you, and this heterospory is actually a precursor to seed habit. Precursor to seed habit means in the case of evolution, the seed habit actually evolved with the heterospory nature of the plants. In case of heterospory, the female gametophyte retains on the parent sporophyte. So the gametophyte will remain on the parent sporophyte, and that is how the seed formation starts in the case of evolution. So precursor to seed habit in evolution. Remember this point, it is important. Questions are asked on this point, that is, in which plant kingdom member the precursor of seed habit is seen, that is heterospory is seen. So it is pteridophyta, where actually the starting of seed formation begin, but the actual seed formation was seen in the case of gymnosperm. शुरू टेरिडोफाइटा में हो गया था, but actual seeds कहाँ दिखे? Gymnosperms के अंदर. So seeds are formed in gymnosperms, but the precursor habits of seed formation or seed habit were seen in pteridophyta. So please do not get confused between the two points. Next we have is classification of pteridophyta. So we'll write the pteridophyta, and we have 4 groups into which the pteridophyta is actually divided. So number 1 is Psilopsida. Number 2 is Sphenopsida. Number 3 is Lycopsida. And number 4 is Pteropsida. So we'll see some important points about these members of the pteridophyta and the examples which they have. So let's start with the most primitive one, that is Psilopsida. These Psilopsida are the members which are mostly extinct. Most of the members of this group are extinct, means now they are not formed on the earth. They are the most ancient vascular plants. Most ancient. vascular plants, which got evolved from the bryophytes. Next is they have the primitive characters which are quite similar to the members of the Bryophyta, and the vascular tissues are seen only in the case of stems. They have only one living genus. Only one living genus is there, and that is known as Psilotum. P is silent again. Have you seen an advertisement of a cereal where she says Pisachni, where P is silent and everything is violent? So it is somewhat like here also in case of Pteridophyta, where P is silent everywhere, giving us so many new things in this member of the plant kingdom. So the Psilotum is known as living fossil because other members of this group are dead. Right? Next, we have two fossil plants as an example, which are again important for us, fossil plants. One is Rhynia and another one is Horneophyton. Rhynia and another one is Horneophyton. Next is another member, that is Lycopsida. Number 2, this was number 1, and now we have number 2, Lycopsida. Here P is not there in the starting, so P is not silent. And these include club moss. These are commonly known as club moss. Remember, club moss are not the true mosses, right? I told you in the Bryophyta, the last video, part 2. That is only the members belonging to the Bryophyta are mosses. Rest all mosses are false moss. They are not the true mosses. Here they are microphyllous, means they have small sized leaves. So leaves are microphyllous or small sized. And now we have certain examples. Number 1 is Lycopodium. Lycopodium. And the example, the common name of Lycopodium, which are also important, that is common club moss or ground pine. So many common names are there, nicknames we can say. Ground pine or trailing evergreen. 3 names are there. Trailing evergreen. Next example we have is Selaginella, which I have been speaking continuously in various points, right? Selaginella. And these Selaginella are known as, or the common names are little club moss or spike moss or bird's nest moss. Now, when we are talking about Selaginella, let's have some more discussions on Selaginella to increase our general knowledge and for the exams also. So I'll write the word Selaginella first and then I'll speak about it. Not an essay, but a few lines. Selaginella, as I told you, is a xerophytic plant, right? If you remember, when I was discussing about the habitat, I gave this example in the xerophytic plants. So these Selaginella are resurrection plants or drought escapers. So this is another an important point. These are resurrection plants, or also known as drought escapers. It means what? They will complete their life cycle before the adverse conditions start. पानी की कमी आने से पहले ही वो अपनी लाइफ को कंप्लीट कर लेंगे. During the drought conditions, जब पानी नहीं होगा, they will just continue their life in the form of spores, resistant spores और जब वापस normal conditions आएंगी they will again come back into the plant form. The spores will again germinate. So in case of Silaginella, they escape the drought conditions, unfavorable conditions in the form of spores. When the favorable conditions retain or come back again, they start their new life. So Silaginella are resurrection plants which complete their life cycle in a short period of time without any adverse conditions. Now, here we have one member of Silaginella, and that member is Silaginella bryopteris. When I was a student, just like you preparing for the NEET, my sir told me about the Silaginella bryopteris, and I got to hear about its actual truth, or we can say the scientific point about it for the first time, and I was quite shocked also. Nowadays so much Google is there and we already Google it, so maybe some of you might be knowing, but it might be new for some of you. So Silaginella species is there, that is bryopteris, and this species of the Silaginella is actually the Sanjeevani booty. Sanjeevani booty, which we saw in the Ramayana, where Hanumanji brings the Sanjeevani booty for Lakshman when he gets faint, when he's in the critical condition. And this Ramayana was played recently on a number of channels during the lockdown, which we all have faced due to COVID. So you all might have seen this episode where Hanumanji takes the complete mountain because he get confused with the actual plant which he needs to get to the Lakshmanji to cure him, which the doctor asked him actually. Now, here the Sanjeevani booty is actually Silaginella bryopteris, and you will be surprised to know that it does not have any medicinal value. Silaginella bryopteris do not have medicinal values. At that time, this Silaginella bryopteris, Sanjeevani booty, saved the life of Lakshmanji, but now the scientists have proved that it does not have any medicinal value. So this is one point on general knowledge for you. It's actually never asked in the exams regarding the medicinal values and Sanjeevani booty, but for general knowledge, in the general knowledge exams you may have this question, so it was just to tell you about this. Next is the group number 3, that is Spinopsida. So number 3, Spinopsida. And this Spinopsida are commonly known as horse tails. Sorry, I don't know what I'm writing. Horse tails. Okay, now these horse tails or Spinopsida are actually looking like the tail of the horse. I'll show you one example, and that is Equisetum. Remember example, I'll show you the picture later in this video itself. So Spinopsida, commonly known as horse tails, have one characteristic point, that is they have nodulated stem. Nodulated stem. It means that they will have nodes and internodes present on it. Nodes and internodes. So this is one characteristic point and important point for the Spinopsida. Next, the epidermis of the stems and leaves have silica deposition, which is a major cause of fire in those in the areas in which these Spinopsida members are present. So next point is silica in epidermis. Epidermis of stem and leaves. And this is a reason of fire in these plants. Next point we have is examples of the Spinopsida, and one important example is there, that is Equisetum. Equisetum. My size of E is representing how important it is. Commonly known as pipe because of its pipe-like structure. I have seen it in the real life. It is grown in this Rajasthan, my state, and especially I've seen it in the Haryana borders, Bikaner side, these equisetum plants, and they have these nodes and internodes which are clearly visible and they look like pipe-like structures, hence the common name given. Another example is Hymia. Right, so these are two examples. Equisetum, we can easily see their pipe-like structure. I have actually seen it. The last member of the Pteridophyta we have is that is number 4, and that is the Pteropsida. Again, the P is silent. Pteropsida. Now, here it is the largest group of Pteridophyta, largest group. Right? Next point, the plants are megaphyllous. That is, ferns are megaphyllous. The members of Pteropsida, that is ferns, these are megaphyllous, means they are large leaf structures. You might have seen ferns in your surroundings. Small stem is there in these megaphyllous pteridophytes, and that small stem is known as fronds. So small stem is known as frond, where the small stem cannot be seen, like it's not visible from far, as it is completely covered by the leaves. If you see in your surroundings, you will see the fern plants easily. Next is another important point, that is young leaves show circinate textus. Important point, circinate textus. Again, P is silent. I don't know how many P are silent over here. Textus. This circinate textus is present in young leaves. Now, what is this circinate textus? Here, the coil structure is there, spring-like coiling like this. The leaves will get coiled like this, and this is to protect the tip of the leaf. This is circinate textus, where the young leaves will get coiled. This coiling like spring is because they need to protect the tip of the leaf. Clear? So this is one important point, and I am giving the star mark definitely 2 stars, as this forms important question in a number of exams. Next, they have multicellular hair-like structures known as ramenta on young leaf and stem for protection. Another important point we have for these Pteropsida members, that is multicellular hair, which are known as ramenta. These multicellular hairs are found on young leaves and stems. And what do? They protect these young leaves and stems. Next point is they do not have cone formation because each leaf base forms sporangia, no cone formation. No cone formation. As I told you here, what are being formed? Sorus are formed here in case of ferns. No cone form. Clear? This is another important point in the members of Pteropsida. Cones are not formed. Now we have the examples of the Pteropsida, and the first one is Pteridium. Fortunately, it does not have any common name, so we are saved by learning common name for at least one example. Another one is Pteris, and it is known as bracken fern or sun fern. Bracken fern or sun fern. Another example is Dryopteris. Dryopteris, and the common name is brook shield fern. Brook shield fern. Right? Another example is there, Adiantum. As it is the largest group, we have more examples to learn from this group. It is known as walking fern or maidenhair fern. I have a question from this point and we'll be discussing it soon. The last example we have is Azolla. Azolla is known as aquatic fern, another important example for us, not only important for the diversity topic, but it is important for other chapters also. And it is the smallest pteridophyte, which is also a biofertilizer. So I'm not going to resist myself from writing these points. The smallest pteridophyte, and it is also a biofertilizer. Why is it known as biofertilizer? Because it is present with the Inabina, that is the blue-green algae, which helps in nitrogen fixation in rice plantations. The Azolla associates with the Inabina in the rice plantations, hence act as the biofertilizers. Now, we cannot finish the examples without talking about the Selaginella again. So I'll write the example Selaginella, and this Selaginella is actually having a characteristic feature, that is viviparity. Viviparity present. Now, what is viviparity? If we talk about animals, viviparous animals means those which give birth to young ones. So here in case of Selaginella, viviparity means the gametophyte remains attached on the parent sporophyte, means the germination of new generation will remain on the parent sporophyte itself. So it has partial endosporic germination. Selaginella has partial endosporic germination. It means what? The spore will germinate partially within the spore wall, then it will come into the soil and will form the new gametophyte. The Selaginella has ligulate leaves, which are known as tongue leaves. Another characteristic feature, ligulate leaves known as tongue leaves because of their shape. Tongue leaves, and they secrete water for moisture. Clear? So this is about the Selaginella we have got, and now I have some important diagrams which are actually important for exams point of view. So let's see those diagrams now. Now the first one which you can see over here, this one. Here this is a Selaginella. What it is a Selaginella. Now, first you need to remember what this plant is. Okay, such questions are asked. I'm telling you what sort of questions from the diagrams can be asked, so that you will not face any problems in the diagrammatic questions for sure. So this is a diagram or picture of Selaginella, which is a member of Pteridophyta. Clear? First point clear. One question, two questions completed. Now, this structure is stem. This is stem of the Selaginella. And on this stem, what is present? Leaves are present. These small leaves are present. So you can see that the stem is very large in size, and on that stem small leaves are present. If you see them in the real life also, then also they are very small, very beautiful. I have seen them in my real life. Once I visited the forest in Rajasthan itself, and I saw the Selaginella. I even drew a beautiful picture, right? So the Selaginella looks like this, where the long stem, large stem is there with small leaves, and roots are present. These structures are roots. They are not very tall plants actually. They are small in height. They actually are creeping style, means they just lay on the land and then roots are being developed over here in the Silaginala. So these labelings, the picture which it belongs to, these points are important in this diagram. Next we have is what I was talking about, that is equisetum. Equisetum, and a number of questions can be formed from this equisetum part. First one, that is what this picture is. Whose this picture is? So this picture is a member of pteridophytes, that is equisetum, commonly known as pine. And you can see that the stem is divided into nodes and internodes like this. Nodes and then internodes are there. Again nodes and then internodes are there. Clear? So such arrangement is there in the case of equisetum. These are nodes and these are internodes. Strobilus is there, that is cone formation is there at the top. And here they have the branches also. Now this labeling is important. These are not the leaves, these are the branches. Clear? And now they have the underground stem. If you remember, I told you about the rhizomes. If you see, these are the underground stems present inside the land or soil, and these are the rhizomes, which are the stems, not the roots. Remember, these rhizomes are the underground stems. And here we have completed two diagrams which can lead to the formation of a number of questions, and now you'll be able to solve all those diagrammatic questions. Next we have is more diagrams for you, which are again important for the exam. So two more diagrams are there, and the first one is fern, which you can easily see in your surroundings, in your schools, colleges, and in your neighbor's house, in your house, gardens. In many places you can see these plants, that is ferns. So for this you just need to remember that these are ferns, right? Else nothing you need to remember, no labeling is required. And if you can see this, I'll show you personally, even though the questions will not be asked in the diagram based type. These structures are the leaves. I'll change the color so that you can easily find what I'm marking. These structures are leaves. This is one leaf. Again, and wrong color I've selected. I'll select the red one. Yeah, this is a leaf. And if you see the stem, it is very small in size. You can't even see that stem in these number of leaves. Okay, and now we have the last one, that is Salvinia. This is Salvinia. Another important question formed in the exams, and no labeling questions are asked from the Salvinia, as no labeling is specified in the NCERT. And remember one point I want to tell you over here now itself. Diagrammatic questions are always from NCERT, means 100%, take it written from me. If any diagrammatic question is there, it means it will be from NCERT. Labelings will be from NCERT, not out of the NCERT. So my personal suggestion, learn diagrams properly with their labelings, with their names, everything, even the figure things which are written over there, like figure number, and then the explanation is written. Do read that explanation. Definitely you will get the questions in the exams. So here we are done with this group, that is Pteridophyta. And now let's have some practice questions from this member of the plant kingdom. So the first question we have got over here is, questions are very easy. Which group includes green leaf microphyllous plants? Which group includes green leaf microphyllous plants? Now, if you don't remember, go back in the video, learn the examples, learn the groups, and then mark the answer here. Options are there: Lycopsida, Option B is there, that is Spinopsida. Option C is there, Psilotopsida. And option D is there, Pteropsida. Okay, if you don't remember the examples of microphyllous and megaphylous plants, go back in the video, learn the examples and then attempt the questions. This is a request for you. Next, question number 2 we have. Which of the following is called as adder's tongue fern? This is one example base which we learn here itself. Which of the following is called as adder's tongue fern? Option 1, Marsilia. Option B, Ediantum. Option C, Ophioglossum. And option D is there, Silazonella, my personally favorite. That's not the reason I made it so much important, but it is actually important. That's why it became my favorite. So let's see the answers for these two, then we'll move to the next questions. For the first question, answer is Lycopsida. And for the second question, answer is Ophioglossum. Clear? Let's see question number 3 we have, that is Ediantum is called walking fern due to, I told you we'll be discussing this example again in the questions. Ediantum. I didn't discuss it freehand because I wanted you to use your logic to give the answer first. And if you're not able to give, then of course I'm there to tell you the reason. It's called walking fern. Walking fern due to reason 1, power of locomotion. It means it can move from one place to another. Power of locomotion. Option B, we have vegetative reproduction. Vegetative reproduction. Option C, motile enterozoites. And option D, we have all of the above. Means all the reasons are responsible for its nickname. All the above. When you get a nickname, do you have so many reasons? No, you have just one reason to get that nickname, right? So similarly, the Ediantum must have one reason only to get this name. So I am giving you the hint that option D is not the answer. I'm telling you the directly this point. So choose out of A, B, and C actually. Let's see question number 4. The enterozoids of fern are the enterozoids of ferns are. Sometimes ferns simply represent the pteridophytes. I'm not talking about here in this question, but generally, in general, if you see the word ferns along with different plants, ferns means we are talking about the pteridophytes. Okay, so option A we have over here, that is uniflagellate. Uniflagellate. Option B is there, that is biflagellate. Option C is there, that is quadriflagellate. Quadriflagellate means 4 flagella will be there. Quadri-4. Okay. Now option D we have, that is multiflagellate. So basically, you know between whom you need to choose, biflagellate and multiflagellate. I'm giving you the hints, right? So I hope you mark the correct answer. And if you don't mark, no problem, you'll learn it now. So young fern leaves and rhizomes are protected by, very easy question. I gave the direct question, right? Young fern leaves and rhizomes are protected by option A, root cap. Very funny. Root caps can be possible in leaves and rhizomes, right? Because rhizomes are stems and leaves won't have root cap. Next is Ramenta. Is it the answer? Next is option C, roots. How roots can protect leaves and rhizomes. D, leaf bases. Is it the answer? So here we are done with the questions, and now we need to finalize the answers for these 3 questions on the screen. And let's start with question number 3. Adiantum is called walking fern due to, what answer did you mark? The answer is actually vegetative reproduction. Adiantum reproduces very fast. It spreads like it is walking. The fern walks. It looks like the fern is walking, but plants do not walk. So power of locomotion is not there. And the option C is also not the reason. That is motile enterozoites are seen in other members of the pteridophyta also. Then why only Adiantum is known as walking fern? Adiantum is known as walking fern because it reproduces at great rate because of its asexual spores, vegetative spores by vegetative reproduction. This is one important question with its nickname and the reason of its nickname. As you also have nicknames with the reason, Adiantum has this reason for its nickname. Next, question number 4 is the enterozoites of ferns are. Ferns means normal pteridophytes, and I gave you biflagellate only one example, right? So in general, multiflagellated sperms are there. Enterozoites, male sperms are multiflagellated in case of ferns. Then we have the last question, that is young fern leaves and rhizomes are protected by, very simple, we discussed in today's video, direct question, that is Ramenta. So we have completed the questions, the complete topic, that is Pteridophyta, and do learn these examples. The diagrams might be learned completely here itself, and if not, keep revising them from your NCERT. And please like this video, subscribe the channel if you haven't subscribed it yet, and please do share it with your friends.